I hope everybody is doing well. I have a little bit more of my dinner to finish, but I figured we could chat for a minute while I finish it up. And uh, I hope everybody's had a good start to their week, or at least tolerable. I've got a serial killer all picked out for you guys. Sorry, my dinner is a little messy. Hey, Carla, how you doing? I heard you had quite the time on the live the other morning. I hope you. Uh, those are always hysterical, aren't they? The games. I can't believe the weekend went by so fast. I didn't get nearly as much done as I would have liked. But I did, get some things accomplished that were on my to-do list. I may just use a pair of scissors for this, honestly. Let's see. So Canadian serial killer is what I focused in on. But I will still, we may still have, well, we'll definitely have, at least one Alaskan serial killer. There's no way we could get through this whole series and not do someone from the UK. Just trying to get a clean cut across there, because I do want to put it back together at the end, But the idea here is to put a bigger spine on it and give it some reinforcement on the outside and on the inside. We may, I don't know, we may lose this page depending on how the reinforcement goes. But for now, just working on here, just removing the spine. I heard about that. Else did mention that. We don't talk that much right now, but yeah, I was like, I assumed that Kennedy was over 18 now. She's been around in the craft community for a while. I think since she was about 16 or 17, maybe. I think she started off in Pink Poodles. And I got my scissors on the ground. And has stayed within a limited range in the crafting community, kind of floating in and out at one time or another, being around more sometimes than others, as teenagers are wont to do. So just trimming that down. All right, so now we've got it. He's naked with just the spine and the stitches. She was again. Oh, I'm sure. I'm not sure what state she's from, but she was quite young when she started in the craft community. I'm almost done eating. And then we'll get started on our serial killer. There were actually quite a few choices there. I stumbled on a list of, I think, 8 well-known Canadian. You made burritos, nice. Love me some burrito. Anything that approaches Mexican food, All right, let me move this out of the way so I don't mess with it. Hold, please. All right. Hey, Janice, how's it going? Oh, how do you like it? I haven't been on the fence about it. The commercials definitely, the ads, the sneak peeks look good. It's a good twisty turn plot. Okay, I'll have to check it out. All right. So I binged Supernatural yesterday, and today is my start to my, I guess it's 61. There's 30 days in September and 31 in October, so 61 days of horror this year. I started it in August last year, and I didn't this year, but stuff happened, so I had planned to, but it just didn't work out that way. So I've already cut the the spine. It's just the spine right now, and I think we measured it the other day, and I think we came up with I needed to make a new spine that was like 4 inches wide, just so it rests comfortably. Yeah. So we'll do that, and I'm going to find some thick chipboard for it. I have varying degrees of chipboard here. Worst case scenario, I'll glue a couple pieces together. He's a big boy. Or girl. That's what it looks like from the top. And then from the side. And I just keep adding pockets. It's like out of control. That's the top, from the top. I've smushed that a little bit. So a lot going on. So I'm going to glue on a new spine right here, and then I'm going to take the covers and attach them. So we may have to rejigger some stuff on the front cover. I may need to pull this off for right now, and we may need to Luckily, nothing's been done on the back, on the outside. So no problems there, but it will be an interesting fix, and I think it will just add to the, hey, Adria, how's it going? I think it'll just add to the overall appeal of it. I like that it'll have to have been repaired some. Hey, Roseanne, how's it going? Hope everybody's Monday was all right. Do I need to start it? Probably. I hear there are some other people out there that might have pocket issues. I don't know when I became that person, because in my writing journals, no pockets. You give me another kind of journal, I'm just shoving pockets in everywhere. Oh, we can make a little tuck spot here. Let's put in a pocket. So yeah, I like how it's coming out, and I think the last thing we put in here is towards the back. It was another pocket, just so you know. Made another giant pocket. Let's see if I can figure out where I put it. Oh, right here. I tipped this in and made it into a gusseted pocket for these big tags here. So this was the last thing we added in. And I'll eventually add a little bit more onto this stage there. But that's hold on, I'm about to push some stuff right off the edge there. That's where all my things go. But this is the last thing we did. You found an amazing napkin you're going to send to me. Oh, would you? Oh, well, that's interesting. I like that. How cool. Okay. So who's up for our serial killer for the day? I haven't put any links. Um, Extra creepy, Adria. It does add a little creep factor to it that it's in the shape of a coffin, right? As if it weren't, as if Ouija boards aren't kind of creepy all by themselves. Um, so I went Canadian with this, as I said earlier. There were quite a few actually to choose from. I settled on Elizabeth Laufer, Elizabeth Wettlaufer, also known as Beth or Bethy. And her, uh, Jen's like, no. But it's the politest no you could send. And Roseanne has an eye peeking out of her hand. Luigi, creepy. He loves the creep. Carla loves the creep, and I love the creep. And everybody else loves the creep, but from a distance, I think. Some creep you don't want to invite into your life, you know? I made some green peppermint tea today for me. Look at Adria trying to share the creep. You want a napkin? You want a couple of napkins? You know you want in on this. Carla, please and thank you. Everybody's so polite tonight. So yeah, Elizabeth Wettlaufer, we'll either refer to her as Wettlaufer or Bethy, I guess, is what she mostly went by. Probably Beth at work. Born in 1967, she is currently 56 years old. She is incarcerated at this point. She was obviously caught and convicted. And she's Canadian. So this took place, her span of activity is 2007 to 2016. Ooh, totally jealous, Roseanne. That is so cool. Nice. Place of birth, Woodstock, Ontario. Some of you guys may have heard of her because I think this was, well, it's fairly recent. She was caught in 2016 at the age of 49. So her parents were Doug and Hazel Parker. She grew up in a staunchly Baptist home. I don't know if her mother was homophobic, but her father was, and her mother was complicit. She either didn't say anything or she was also homophobic. Their church, also homophobic, believing in conversion therapy and praying the gay away. So it's the kind of household that she grew up in. I did not read that she had any siblings, but most of the stuff that I read and watched did not really speak all that much of her childhood pre like secondary school, you know, a little bit about her like early, like first through you know, her grade school years. There's a little bit about her. But so her parents were not only staunchly religious and homophobic, but they kind of believed that children should be seen and not heard. So they were not interactive parents. They weren't doting on their children. I think it's the kind of, you're here, you do your chores, you go to school, you do. They were raised, or she was raised to be blind and unquestioning in matters of faith. And I assume with her parents as well, if they said something, she was meant to just follow along and not question it. I don't think it was a happy, exuberant home, but no indications of physical abuse of any kind spoken of. I will get more into her father later during her college years. The really short story here is she's the convicted Canadian serial killer, former registered nurse. She also did some social work, and she held a variety of jobs in the medical field, everything from making beds and fluffing pillows to um, uh, being in charge of a floor in a care facility for older people. The mean kind of Baptist, yeah. Not the fun ones that sing and dance. And I don't really know that much about this area of Ontario, so I don't know if that's predominant. But and it's not even like she's not like a teenager or in her 20s when she commits these crimes. She started in 2007 and got caught at the age of 49 in 2016. And she didn't get married until she was 30. So this isn't something that happened in her youth, which is a lot of male serial killers. They start in their late teens or in their early 20s. And there's no indication that she ever had, she had emotional problems, but no indication that she was a killer before 2007. Do you have Messenger on Facebook or IG? Are you talking to Carla or me? Mine is always on, even if because my phone has it on, so if my phone is turned on, it's on, and I leave my computer going all the time, so it almost always says that I am online. But if I don't reply to you, that just means I'm not at my computer, or my phone is somewhere and the volume could be turned down. So just for in general kind of speaking, I don't ever ignore anybody on any of the things. So just be aware that sometimes I don't know. And sometimes on this laptop, there'll be a message there when I go in, like when I click on that tab, but it doesn't make any noise because normally it would bing. Your IG is way different. So her conviction, so she is in jail right now. And this will seem, and I'll mention it at the end, this will probably seem a little ironic at the end of this discussion. She'll be eligible for parole in 2042 at the age of 75. She's currently serving 8 consecutive concurrent. She's serving concurrent 8 life sentences. She 8 murders and a couple of failed attempts. So her convictions are actually a murder, 8 counts, attempted murder, I think that's 3 counts, and aggravated assault, a 1 count. So she killed 8 people, elderly people. She is what they call an angel of death type of serial killer. And she injected her patients with insulin. That was her method. So let's get into it. So like I said, her home life, staunchly religious. Children should be seen and not heard. Following the rules blindly for the house and for church. Her personality across the board was described as shy and awkward. And she was bullied extensively at school, made fun of. Mercilessly, pretty much. And I don't know if awkwardness is because of her upbringing and not really being socialized with her own parents. Um, I'll get more into that. I couldn't find much on the parents, so I don't know. I'm going to do a little search, and we may follow up next week on her parents because I couldn't really find that much information about them. Um, and because they're presumably, at least at the time of these crimes, still living, they may have managed their own to not put a lot out there about themselves. As she approached high school age, she got a bit more popular because she was a goalie for the field hockey team, and she was in the school band. So her friendship circle expanded a little, but she was also described by classmates and I guess former friends as being a bit devious and vindictive. In the first couple of videos I watched, and in the first 3 or 4 articles I read, it didn't really talk much about her, but apparently she lied extensively throughout her life for attention about all kinds of things. Well, I think she was still seen as awkward, but because she was involved in sports, there is kind of a natural camaraderie that comes with that. And band, kind of the same thing. So she had more friends, but that doesn't necessarily mean she was more popular. During her high school years, when she hit puberty, and it was you start having those feelings about usually the opposite sex. I think she she definitely found that she was having feelings. More of her attention was focused on girls, and at first some of the places said she felt like she admired them, her fellow athletes and stuff, people, that her attraction to them was based on her admiration of them. But once she hit puberty, she realized her feelings were not just admiration. So let's go back to homophobic parents in church. So she went through several pray the gay away, conversion camp type things, therapy protocols, and I think we all know you can't pray the gay away. It doesn't work like that. So she approached a girl that she was attracted to while she was in high school, and basically blurted out her feelings, and didn't really make any attempt to suss out if the other girl may have been gay or gay friendly. It got out that she made her proclamation to this girl, and went back to her parents, and her dad put her in conversion therapy. So far we're getting, I think, shades of neglect in terms of parenting. Do as I say, not as I do. Follow all the rules. You don't get a say in anything. I think her life decisions were made for her by her parents, and probably mostly by her dad. But what it did give her was feelings of anxiety, worthlessness, depression. I think it made her awkward again. She did try to date boys in school, but because she was shy and awkward, boys generally were not attracted to her. So she went kind of through high school, probably not, maybe having a date here or there, but pretending, I think, for her parents' sake, that the conversion therapy worked. I love a movie related to that. I Want to Be a Cheerleader. Yeah, I think I saw that too. And they fell in love basically at the conversion camp. I think I saw that one, Adria. I think it's devastating to, one, something you can't change about yourself. And I I don't want to get into the semantics of it. Whatever your personal beliefs are with you. But I don't think being gay is a choice. It's how you are. It's the same as, your personal preferences with food. Those are a part of who you are. If you don't like mushrooms and you try them periodically throughout your life and you discover, no, I really just don't like mushrooms, that's a personal choice. But being gay is like your hair color and your eye color. It's not something I think you can change about yourself. And then having to go through conversion therapy and being at that awkward stage in your teens, I think that's a pretty devastating blow. But I want to say, for all of these things that she's experiencing, it still doesn't gender any sympathy in me in terms of what she did in killing people. I think we've seen people experience far worse in life and come out the other side of it and not been murderers. So college, she went. So I think her parents were relatively well to do. She went to 2 different colleges. She started college at London Baptist Bible College in London, Ontario. And she originally wanted to pursue journalism. She did that for a semester, and I think she discovered it really wasn't for her. But she'd had that strong she could have moved away from home after that. But no, she went on to a Bible college and a second Bible college after that. But let's remember, it's been indoctrinated in her for her entire life. Blind faith, the absolutes of religion. And I think that that it can be hard to break away from, especially if your whole community is your church. If you go to church with the people you go to school with and you work with those people and that's your whole life, I think it can be hard for people to walk away from that. And the fact that they didn't boot her out, that they sent her to conversion therapy, which I think is a form of abuse personally, that she may not have seen walking away as an option at that time. I agree. I'm not saying what these people are doing is right. I'm just saying we're looking at her mindset, her psychology as it relates to early childhood development. She's been taught her whole life, be seen and not heard, obey your parents. These religious truths are absolute and unequivocal, and you don't have a right to question them. This is what it is. So I'm not saying that that's a reason for her to do the thing she did, but I think it made it much harder for her to be who she was. And so who she truly was never allowed to develop until she was over 30, I think. And that's depression, that's mental health issues of all kinds, which we will get into in a little bit. But I think it made it easier for her to justify some things later on. But it's bad thinking, not that she was justified. I in no way am I saying that anything she has gone through justifies murder at all. So originally journalism, and then she, because she has a strong religious upbringing, she went into guidance that would have been like social work or spiritual guidance. She graduated with a degree in religious education counseling. So she wanted to work with young people. And I think at some point she thought possibly, knowing who she was inside and having to pretend otherwise, that maybe she could be helpful to other people in her situation. But here's where it gets creepy. So she enrolled in this Bible college. Her father enrolled with her. And this is where I question possibly some. That's very controlling. That's very possessive, in my opinion. So I'm The first question in my mind was there something more going on between them than should that than is uh yeah, like very creepy, very inappropriate. How horrified would you be if you finally got away to college and you were starting to explore who you were and what you wanted to do with your life, and your staunchly religious homophobic father showed up and enrolled in the same classes as you? I'm not saying he just enrolled in the college and took classes. They went to some of the same classes together. So I think inappropriate attachment is the least of the problems that could be suggested here. But I didn't see anybody else ask this question. It feels weird to me. And the wife is almost like a non-player in the story, other than being a supporter of whatever her homophobic husband believed. I'm thinking she's lettuce. She's dressing on the side. But it makes me question if there was maybe some kind of other abuse going on there. I saw no proof of it, and I will look further into it just because it does interest me. But that all on its own, without any other subtext, is cringy. So she's attending college, and I think he may have started attending at this point. She has to go through a second conversion therapy because she made a female friend and went to a gay friendly church with this woman. I'm just thinking that is, you send your kids to college and you hope that they expand on who they are or they figure some shit out. I can't imagine. I could imagine maybe enrolling in the same college as my kids if they had reached that point and I wanted to pursue a degree. But I can't imagine I would try never to be in the same class as them. And I wouldn't like make them go to school with me and shit. But I just can't imagine your father enrolling in school and going to your classes. It's beyond the pale for me. It happened in the holiest of places. Oh no. Excuse me. So she goes through a second conversion therapy essentially. And here the feelings of self-loathing. Her depression increases. It doesn't say that this is a point at what point she comes to have first problems with alcohol, losing several jobs because she was drunk on the job, was drunk enough to pass out or to be visibly impaired at work. So she discovers that religious education counseling is not for her. I think she gave it a go and realized that she was not healthy enough emotionally that she could counsel others, really. And I don't know if that decision was made for her or if it was a moment of enlightenment for herself. I couldn't suss that out in the various videos I watched, but it's possible that she just, nope, not for me, or somebody said, no, this isn't for you, inappropriate. So she went back to college at Constanzo. My handwriting's bad. To Constanzo College, I think. I know I'm not pronouncing it right. I think I missed a letter somewhere. Yeah. So here she is, and she's attending. I don't know in relation. I probably should have looked where her parents lived, how far away this college was. She may have been living at home this whole time. Calistoga. There you go. Thank you. She may have been living home or close to home during all of this, and she may have attended the same church for much of this time. And certainly if her dad went to college with her, if she wasn't going to the same church, he probably picked the church they would go to for her after this incident with the gay-friendly church. So she went to Conestoga College and got a nursing degree. She started out at a social service agency for disabled people, and from there went on to work as a registered nurse at hold on, I wrote it down over here. Crescent Care, long-term care facility for people, mostly older people, but also some people in their 50s, schizophrenic and stuff, people who needed long-term medical care, whether it was drug-related or where they had to be on a regimen of medicine and could not care for themselves on their own, like couldn't cook their own meals without problems and stuff like that. So it's unclear how much leverage her father had on her after college, but in 1997, at the age of 30, she married a truck driver named Donnie Wetlaufer. Her maiden name obviously was Parker. So she married this truck driver, and he was obviously on the road a lot. While she was married to him, I don't know if this is the point at which she started seeing medical professionals about some of her issues, but she had problems with depression. She had some problems with alcohol at this point. And as this progresses, she is diagnosed as bipolar, which she tries to self-medicate, unsuccessfully, I might add. But so he ultimately divorces her. But while he was on the road, she unknowingly to him developed several friendships. Her name is Elizabeth Wetlaufer, maiden name Parker, and she went by Beth or Bethy for most of her adult life. She's Canadian, in hometown Woodstock, Ohio. So she developed a relationship with several women online and carried out letter writing and stuff like that. At some point, her husband found the letters between her and one of the women, and he divorced her. Sometime after the divorce, she went to meet one of these women. Ontario, yes, Canada. Woodstock, Ontario. And lived most of her life in Southwest Ontario. So she did, I guess, finally embrace her gay. She went, she had a long distance relationship with a woman for a while, and they decided to meet, and she arrived where this woman lived and basically acted like a teenager on a first date. She hung off this woman. She was overly affectionate, especially since it was their first time in-person meeting. She was supposed to go stay with this woman at her house, but they went out to a dinner, and she hung off her the whole time and said some things that were concerning, like that she already knew that she was so in love with her and they were going to get married and they were soulmates. So instead of taking her to her home to stay for the week, she decided they would stay in a hotel. She did not want to let her know where she lived. And basically during the course of the week, found a way to break it to her that this was not going to work. She thoroughly creeped this woman out with her inappropriate behavior. She was petulant. She was behaving like a child some of the time. She was pouty. Now, let's remember that at this point, Wetlaufer is a registered nurse. And one of the things these ladies had bonded over was the girlfriend had a mother in a healthcare facility similar to what Wes Laufer was working in. And that's one of the things they talked about extensively. So part of the trip involved the girlfriend wanted her to meet the mom. And they went, and apparently Wes Laufer sat in a chair and pouted the entire time they were there, refused to engage with her mother, and acted like an ass. So, there we go. So that was her first, I think this was her first attempt at living out. And I think she was excited and happy to finally be herself. And she was rejected, which was probably heartbreaking. But I don't think she realized how inappropriate she was behaving. Which points further to, her psychological issues. And probably just some, some stagnation in terms of personal development, because she had to hide what she was for so long. So she later goes on to meet a woman named Sheila Andrews, who they move in together, and ultimately, I don't know if they got married, but I think she introduced her as her wife. Oh, no, they were married. They were separated in 2007 and divorced in 2008. Or is it 18? I think it's 8. I think probably because of the drinking and the drugs. Yeah, she was, what's the word I want to use? She was very immature emotionally when it came to just trying to be herself, because she'd been living in a role her entire life. The good daughter, the good Christian, the good wife. Her and her husband never had any kids, so I don't know how much sex they actually had. And nobody really went into the marriage any deeper than they were married, and then they were divorced. Before she met Andrew, she became employed at this Crescent Care long-term health facility. She was actually, I think, that's the one of the videos I watched said she was diagnosed bipolar at some point, but more than likely from her late grade school to early, from grade school, late grade school, certainly from high school forward, but borderline personality disorder. And I'm gonna delve deeply into that, or not deeply, but briefly. I've got my notes on another. Okay. So, long-term emotional instability, problems with self-image, problems with relationships, impulsivity issues. So some of these people can have addiction issues with gambling, with sex, with alcohol, with drugs. Obviously, 2 of her big ones were alcohol and drugs. Extreme mood springs, as with people with bipolar disorder. Trouble controlling their emotions, which would be the outbursts and the petulant, pouty behavior. They are high risk for suicide or self-destructive behavior, drugs, alcohol, inappropriate relationships. They may attach to much older people, much younger people, people who are not healthy for them. So, and this is something that can be controlled with behavioral therapy, drugs, and it is a chronic condition. but it's not curable. So it can last for years, and some people do kind of outgrow it, or may mature into being able to manage it better. She did not ever reach that point. And I think having been diagnosed as bipolar rather than borderline personality probably hindered that some, if that all makes sense. Maybe. I read into it that he was fairly stable in the community, just very controlling. I think he was a patriarch in the traditional sense, rule with an iron fist kind of guy. And but I feel like it's also suggestive that something could have been going on. The college course thing really bothered me a lot. Good pickup, Carla. Good pickup. I was getting there. um, so she worked at this facility for quite a long time. She unseemingly, I don't think this should have happened, because early on in her career she had been put on a leave and meant to take and made to take um, a drug treatment therapy program. I think she was in for a month. Um, and this is kind of where the medical community fell apart. She had a lot of disciplinary actions, but they were not kept in one place. I think as successive supervisors went through this facility, they each had maybe their own file, or things were misplaced or whatever. She had a lot of disciplinary action, especially for, and her license was suspended at one point, or not suspended, but limited, where she couldn't work with drugs and stuff because she had stolen drugs and gotten caught. At some point, this was lifted, and lo and behold, somehow she got to be head nurse on the floor at night, a time when meds are often um, distributed. So here she is, a person with alcohol and drug abuse issues. She kind of had a party town time for a while. She was skimming meds and replacing them with largely benign medicines. She would take the contents out of capsules and fill it with something else. Um, so she was, for a lot of this time, working alone or with a minimal other staff, high out of her mind in the basement of the building, not really looking after these old people like she should. Like, I mean, high enough that she did not have. She was caught at several junctures where people had to intervene, and she was able to play it off in a couple of the cases as other issues. But certainly people at the facility had to have known, based on her suspension of her license previously, that it's a bad idea to put somebody in control of drugs who had at some point, even if it was if they were unaware that she was currently having an issue with alcohol and drugs, that she had been suspended for that at some point, and maybe not the best idea to put this woman in charge of drugs. So we're going to get into her victimology. Do you guys have any questions or anything before I start getting into Yeah, I think so. I'm going to try and follow up on that, because the more I've thought about it, the longer I've had this information, like I've been stewing on it, and I'm like, I feel like there's more there to that college thing. And being made to live the straight life is probably horrific. However, I don't think that accounts for all of the alcoholism and the drug abuse. Like, this is a lifelong problem. She literally could not make herself quit. Okay, so her so she before she killed anybody, she did some experiments. It started out with a woman named Clotilda Adriano. She had advanced dementia. She was in her 80s. Um, and this is where her religious upbringing kind of comes into play. And I don't know if she used that as an excuse to justify the things she did, or if she truly felt that she was in some way intervening. I doubt that she may have thought she was doing this, that it was her mission, or somehow that God had placed her there to relieve the misery of these older people. But this woman had advanced dementia. She was in constant pain. She really didn't know who she was, where she was, why she was there. So she gave her, and the woman was diabetic on top of all this. She gave her a higher dose of insulin than she should have, and then went back to the nurse's desk and waited. But some other employee went in to check on her for something else and discovered her kind of in a more disoriented state than usual. And so she was saved, but nobody pegged it as an insulin overdose. They just thought it was a result of her ongoing issues. So no consequences there. But long and short, she basically used Clotilda and her sister, who was also in the home, and experimented on them with different dosages of insulin to see what would happen and what's developing basically what is a hot shot for people this age, around their weight, that kind of thing, discovering what the various effects were for different doses and what it took to actually kill someone. Okay, so nobody really caught on that she was experimenting with these sisters either, but she did not kill them. I'm sure this was not pleasant for them, being elderly, confused, and unable to care for themselves. It sounds like a bit, essentially. But she thought she was on a mission from God. So her first official murder was James Silcox, an 84-year-old World War II veteran and stroke victim. So he's 84 and he's had a stroke. But that's not necessarily, it doesn't sound like it was debilitating enough to require some long-term care. But it sounds like he probably was on the road to recovery, and recovery from a major stroke does take some time. It takes some physical therapy. It takes some other kinds of therapy. It takes some dietary changes. But he was a difficult patient. He wandered around. He was not compliant. He was outspoken. And I think while she claims to have been on a religious mission, I think he kept her from being able to enjoy her high, essentially, because she had to keep a closer eye on him. So she overdosed him on insulin, and he was found the next morning by another orderly or another nurse. However, because she was the shift nurse for essentially that floor, it was her job to write up the reports, document the death and any irregularities. And guess what? She didn't report any irregularities. Big surprise. So it was presumed by the family, by the hospital, by the other staff, that he died of age-related or stroke-related health reasons. No autopsy was done. Nobody ever suspected that he was murdered. She confessed to all of this later. This is how we know that she murdered them. Her third victim was Maurice Mo. Something with a G. Grant. Oh, I'm sorry. Something with a G. In December 2007. So the first one was in 2006. Here we are in December 2007. Mo liked to grab the breasts of the nurses when they came in to administer to him to give him his drugs and check his vitals and all that. He was confused and angry. I believe he also had dementia. No, confused, angry, with no chance of recovery. I think he had had a stroke, and he was confused and angry a lot. And also grabby. She did him in. Now, neither of these two sound to me like she was taking into account that she cared over much. Certainly the 84-year-old probably had a relatively good prognosis. This other guy was not going to recover, but he was difficult also. I think she killed them because they were difficult. They kept her from enjoying her high, and obviously the other guy was very grabby. I don't think that's justified, but I think she did it just because they were difficult and they were men. Other victims include Gladys Milford, 87, Helen Matheson, 95, Mary Zerwanski, 96, Helen Young, 90. So these take place between 2007 and 2013 is the last one in this particular list. 2013 is her last quote-unquote victim. Well, it's her second to last victim. She did have a final victim. But around this time, I think people at the care facility kind of were fed up with her. Yeah, I think she did away with difficult patients. Now, the women, I think she mostly got rid of because they had long-term debilitating things. Now, they may have been a little bit difficult, but I think her approach to them, she had more women victims than men, obviously, and the men victims were 100% difficult people. At least I'm sure it seemed that way to her. I wouldn't appreciate it if somebody grabbed my breasts all the time. Especially if I was trying to take blood pressure, get you to take meds. Well, it was over. So 2006 to 2013, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 7 years, 8 deaths. In the grand scheme of things for this age group, you're talking about 87, 95, 96, 90, 84 for the first one. Mo was 84. In this age range, I don't think that I think if she had killed double that, maybe. Here's the thing. Insulin poisoning or insulin overdoses, very hard to discover. It breaks down in the system fast. And more importantly, if the patient is already on insulin, they might be faster to find it if the person wasn't taking insulin, because there would be needle mark, at least one, right, where there maybe shouldn't be. But most of these patients were already on insulin or were taking other drugs where they were getting shots. And on older people, they have all kinds of bruises and stuff. Death at 96 would not be unusual. So I think because of the age range of her victims and the fact that it's very hard to prove insulin poisoning or insulin overdose. A couple of the videos I watched explained in depth there's a way, because where it's injected, it can kind of, stay in the veins there. Right. definitely. But they were mostly looking at her disciplinary. She was, I think, becoming increasingly erratic at work. She was being found more more often than not where she needed to be, and in the basement high or drunk or both. So, around 2010, which is kind of in the middle of all of this, she had a deep depression where she had a couple of failures. She did try to kill two people. I'm live. Okay. What does it say?
It says parents.
Okay. That's nice. Is it resin?
Mm.
Is it shiny? What is it made out of?
Stuff.
Whatever.
I can't tell you. You're live.
Oh, Jesus. I'll mute them for a second. It's secret stuff. So where was I? Oh gosh. So she went into this depression. Following each kill, I guess. So I guess she claimed when she confessed or during the confession process that she wanted to stop, but she couldn't make herself. She had two failures. 57-year-old Wayne Hedges, who was a schizophrenic, another difficult man. He had trouble. He was in the long care facility. 57, obviously, he would have lived for many more years as a schizophrenic. He was in there because he had trouble maintaining his personal routines and managing his own medication. And then I'm trying to think what the other. I guess I didn't write down the other person's name. But I think up until the failures, I think she kind of thought mission from God. And then she injected these people with insulin and it didn't work. And probably on the case of the 57-year-old, he was young and healthy enough that he woke up with no real side effects to it. So she began to question whether it really was like a mission from God. She claimed it was a compulsion that this red wave would come over her, and it stayed with her, and it didn't go away until she killed someone. So I think that she's reaching a tipping point mentally where her erratic behavior is starting to be noticed by more and more people around the facility. She, however, did describe this red wave and when she killed and was successful as an orgasmic feeling. So, a little bit out there. So she did find pleasure in the killing, whether she told herself she was doing this to help people, to help in their suffering. She did have a quote somewhere saying, "Could it be Satan?" Where she said either God or the devil was making her do it. No, bitch, you just crazy. Nobody made you do it but you. There was a 2-year gap in her killings between 2011 and 2013. Helen Young was one of her last two victims. Here we are with a woman who was a difficult patient. I believe she was suffering Alzheimer's or something similar, dementia, but she was argumentative, difficult to control. She would get out of bed and wander around. She didn't take orders well. Basically, she wouldn't listen. uh, hold the phone. Wettlaufer injected her with 10 times the amount of insulin necessary to kill her. Now, insulin is a relatively painless death. It does cause some racing of the heart, shallow breathing. It can lead to, you can feel a little panicky. But generally, it's not a painful thing. But at a 10 times dose, extremely painful. She turned red, bulging of the eyes. It basically a shit show. It's a horrible way to die. And when they found her, it was clear that she had died painfully. Maureen Pickering, 79, was her final Crescent Care murder in 2014. And they finally, I guess, gathered together all her disciplinary shit and fired her. Well, not really, though, because this is what happened. They settled with her, gave her a payout, a letter of recommendation, and I guess it's the equivalent of, I quit, you're fired. I didn't write down much about Maureen Pickering's death. I think that this was another one that was just, she felt she was releasing somebody from. But I expect to some degree all of these people were difficult in some way. I think that she didn't want to work hard, if at all. She wanted to be high all the time. And she liked the idea of, quote unquote, putting people out of their misery, when I think what she really wanted was to put them out of her misery. And her final victim, I don't think that they suspected her of murdering these people, honestly. It was clear that she had been overdosed, but I don't think they thought it was intentional. They were getting her for being high and for having lots of disciplinary actions. From obviously, she was skimming drugs and replacing them with others. So she had things on her disciplinary record, like providing the wrong medications and stuff like that, which she could argue were just errors, you know. But I guess at some point they compiled it all together and went, holy shit, we have a problem. So after that, this is a 1 month treatment program she went in for her addictions, and then she basically went back to work part-time at various other healthcare facilities and home care, which is where the person is living in their own home, but maybe the person stops in for a few hours a day and helps them with things. So her final victim is Arpad Harvath at Meadow Park facility. 75-year-old with very difficult late-stage dementia. Typical as the other ones. He was extremely difficult. I imagine he didn't know who he was, where he was a lot of the time. I think that he was argumentative. He probably had violent outbursts. I think he was probably one of the more, they get confused and sometimes they react violently or they strike out at people who have dementia. I'm not saying that's a reason to hurt somebody or to kill them. I'm just saying it can happen even with the best of care that people are difficult because they're scared, because they don't understand what's happening to them. So she was he was the last. She would have gone completely undetected. Wait for it. She also attempted to kill Sandra Towler, 77, and Beverly Bertram, 68. Here's where it gets crazy, folks. In September 2016, she checked herself into a drug rehab program and confessed to them that she murdered 8 people. and they did not believe her. One of her former pastors was asked about it. He had confessed not just to this place, to a couple of friends, to a couple of coworkers, and to a pastor at a church she went to. And nobody believed her because she was known for lying excessively for attention, which is part of that diagnosis we talked about earlier. The borderline personality, remember we talked about that? Emotional instability, feelings of worthlessness, insecurity, impulsivity. A lot of the impulsivity is related to addictive behaviors, but also lying. And they have impaired social relationships. They don't understand how relationships are supposed to work. They don't pick up on the normal social cues, not to the extent that someone on the spectrum for, say, autism would, but a lot of times borderline personality disorder comes with outlandish lying. So nobody believed her. They said, yeah, okay. They gave her like some paper or a notebook or something and said, all right, well, you go write down what you did. And she came back with a detailed 4-page confession, names, dates, dosages, everything. So they contacted the authorities for the, whoever's in charge of the medical stuff. And those people contacted the police. And there was an extensive investigation. So here's the outrageous part. She was put on medical leave 4 times during her tenure at the Crescent Care Medical Facility. They did not properly maintain her medical records. As a result, there was a lot of outcry from the families and just from people in general about how the profession is policing itself. She should not have been working as a medical care professional in any way. And she certainly shouldn't have been in charge of medication after she had her license suspended. When you see all that stuff listed out, she had a lot of issues, but it largely went under the record. I imagine a place like Crescent Care undergoes a lot of staff changes. I don't think a lot of people stay, and it's hard. It's hard to care for people who have dementia and long-term healthcare issues. And I think that she was there for quite a long time, and I think she may have taken advantage of the fact that people don't often stay in those positions long-term because it's so hard and heartbreaking to care for people in that situation. It was a very detailed confession, 4 pages. So had she not confessed, she would have gotten away. I hate to Scooby-Doo it, but she was her own downfall. She could have successfully, but she was in her own way emotionally conflicted about what she was doing. Yes, it gave her a sense of satisfaction in one instance, but it also, she knew the difference between right and wrong. It's not like she didn't know. She stated emphatically, and she was tested and, sent to therapists and stuff. She knew the difference between right and wrong. She chose to do this, to kill people for her own, I guess, nefarious reasons, ranging from this person annoyed me to I think I'm doing the right thing and ending their suffering. But then she also experimented on those 2 sisters. So whatever she's putting out there in terms of making the public hate her less, I'm pretty sure all of this was very selfishly motivated, and that she targeted difficult patients, and that some were more difficult than others. There's probably a book out there. I did not look that far. I would like to give this a little bit more attention in terms of, I want to look a little bit farther into her marriage. So, I want to see if he's ever talked about the state of their marriage. Did they even have sex? what was she like as a wife? Was she a good wife? And did she make meals and stuff? Or was she just a whacked out psycho the entire time? I want to look at that at the father. Yes, there is footage of her police confession. She is a large, short woman with a cherub face. It was big news, I think, at the time. And I want to look at her dad, very specifically. Those two things, I'm interested in following up on those. Anybody else with any issues you think we could follow up on further? Because of the way I break it down, it's sometimes difficult to, she's killing these people, but in between all of this, she's having disciplinary issues. She's having a lot of depression, a lot of questioning herself. Her reactions to the killings range from ecstatic, verging on orgasmic, to deeply depressive, to angry outbursts. Like, she's all over the place. But I think I'd like to at least we'll do one more Monday about her, just in terms of if we can find anything about her marriage and her dad. And in that video that we do, I'll list all of my sources, that, the videos I've watched, and the articles I've read, and the Wikipedia and all that. I don't know about sexual abuse, but I feel like that college thing goes beyond just trying to keep tabs on your daughter. That's extremely controlling. So I'm wondering how tight a clutch he had on her, because she basically acted like a child when she got free. And what made him let go? Was it when she finally got divorced, or when she got married and he thought that she would be under control from her husband? So was the marriage controlling like that? I have questions. So, did you guys already know about this case, first of all? Like, did I just tell you some shit you already knew about? And are you okay with the follow-up next week? I'm going to get a drink while you guys are thinking about that. Oh. And I do believe in euthanasia. I think people should be allowed to choose if they want to end their lives, if they know that they're going down that you have cancer and you're going to die. You know that you're entering, or you have early onset dementia. You choose your time, but you would choose to do it yourself, or with the aid of people who are going to give you a decent passage, who aren't going to kill you out of spite because you make their life difficult. Thanks, Adria. Okay. Because if the general feedback was, no, we don't care anymore. I'm deeply curious. The dad college thing really got me, and because there was so little said about the marriage, I wonder, like, he was gone a lot of the time, but was he controlling? Was he abusive? Was that the first time she'd ever experienced any real freedom in her life because he was gone? What made the dad pull back? Like, it seemed like maybe after he pulled back, although she had emotional and drug and alcohol problems, she wasn't really off the rails at that point. So I'm just interested to see if I can learn anything more. So thanks for indulging me. So I'll look at that this week, and we'll come back next week. And by then the book should be repaired. I will try and video the process. This could be ugly and there could be swearing, just so you know. It'll probably wind up on Patreon for everybody. Um, but we should have a new spine on the book by then, so we can work on some more pages and get some more stuff done in there while we're talking about our murder. I get so focused on the details, though, I sometimes forget that I'm supposed to be doing this over here. So, thank you for the thumbs up. I hope you guys had, like I said, an earlier day okay. I hope your day tomorrow is good. Thanks for coming and spending time with me. We went over by 20 minutes, and I am sorry about that. There was a lot of stuff in this case, though. We're going to have to call the prison and get the deeds. I gotta know. And I'll find out if there's any books about her, too. I'm sure there must be. This was a pretty big case, I remember at the time. In 2006, I think we were in Ohio, and I had 2 young kids. I probably didn't pay as much attention as I would have otherwise, but I remember it being in the news, the angel of death. I think there was another angel of death. I don't know if it was in like the cold states up top, but there was a baby angel of mercy killer, I think. Or I'm thinking of the movie Misery. So, so I will be back next week. I will be live tomorrow for the Tiny Teeny. I'm gonna do a live one tomorrow. It's been a little while, so I thought it might be fun to do a live one. And I will be live on Wednesday, but not Thursday, and live on Friday. So I hope if you guys don't have anything else to do tomorrow, that I'll see you there. Thank you again for coming and spending some time with me tonight. However you guys are spending your days and nights, I hope it brings you great joy and happiness. Each and every one of you absolutely deserves it. Until I see you in one of my lives or in a box somewhere, I wish you guys the happiest of crafting. Bye. See you tomorrow night. Probably 6 o'clock for about an hour. Bright blessings and hugs and hisses to you all. The end. We're pushing the button, ladies. Push the button.